All right. Well, welcome everyone. We are back and we're talking about CSRs or receptionist, depending on your industry, what you call it, right? But customer service representative, receptionist, and I brought in some help because I'm not a good CSR. I will be the first to admit that nobody wants me on the phone. So I uh I
Told
lack
you
in
to
that
get off
department.
the phone, I think, if I remember right.
Yeah, Larry kicked me off the phone. Yeah, that's a whole different story. We won't get into that. So, yeah, so I'm not the person to completely talk about this. I have my own opinions, but I brought my wife Yana on because Yana has a very common story for a lot of small businesses when it comes to home services, where she was a elementary school teacher and we needed a new CSR, and Larry and I manipulated, convinced, whatever you want to use for a term to get Yana into to answering the phones. And she kind of came kicking and screaming, but then she rocked it for years and years. So um, I think she has some pretty good insights that a lot of people here can benefit from. So I invited her in. And then obviously there's other people here that are masterful on the phone as well, and we'll call on that. So anyway, let's getting into talking about the CSRs, because look, I know it's an operations course, but in the sizes of businesses that most of the people are here, we still manage this. We still are managing the phones. It's not like we're some IBM and there's, nobody's managing the phones that's in operations. We're all doing everything a little bit, right? On the org chart as a manager, you're part of what we're managing, right? So I I believe that CSR is, we'll use that term for the rest of the night, is often the most overlooked key position in most home service businesses. And I also believe, in dealing with lots of companies and coaching and then, our own business, that it's often the least trained. And that's a problem, right? That's a huge disconnect because a lot of the money is, we'll talk about this on another slide, but a lot of the money, like, we had Larry out marketing all day, every day, and we're paying for Google local service ads, and we're doing pay-per-click, and Larry's at Chambers. And what are we doing? We're spending money to get the phone to ring. And then we all of a sudden have somebody who's on the phone who has no formal training to turn that into jobs and actual revenue, right? So we could potentially spend a lot of money to get the phone to ring and then lose it if we don't have a well-trained CSR on the other end, right? So who becomes a CSR in a small home service business? Often, right? So Yana and I were having this conversation before the event today, and Yana, just so for those, after we sold, Yana went to Power Selling Pros and was a coach for CSRs for home service businesses all over the country. Restoration, plumbing, heating, electrical, carpet cleaning, right, Yana? Is that basically who you're
That is
coaching?
it. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
All sorts of home service. I even coached pest control, some
Yeah.
window washers. So it's all across the board.
So if we had 100 CSRs getting coached at Power Selling Pros, how many were male, roughly?
I would say 10 out of 100 are male. So it's a
Yeah.
predominantly women in
Female. Yeah.
the field of answering the telephone.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, what I see dealing with lots of service companies every week is who becomes a CSR? It's the mom, the daughter, the sister of the owner, like somebody in the family, generally female,
The wife,
ends
don't
up
forget the
getting,
wife.
well, that's the mom, right? So
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
wife, girlfriend, somebody gets hoodwinked into taking this job because we're desperate, right? Look, I mean, Larry and I in the early days, we were out cleaning carpet. I'd be on the wand, pushing the wand, and Larry would have the Bluetooth headset and he was vacuuming, and then the phone rings and he'd run out of the house to the van and he's trying to take the call to book the next job that we're going to do. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And then all of a sudden you get to the point where you're like, we can't work this way anymore. We now need that person to answer the phone. So what happens to that person when we get them to come in? Well, they just get thrown in, no scripts, no training manual, no nothing, right? And it's like, well, you have a nice voice and you seem like a good person. Go ahead and take the phones, right? No initial training, no metrics, no idea how we're doing, right? We're not tracking anything at the beginning. Hopefully we are as good. No ongoing training and look, and often no sales training. This is also a sales position. And also all of the things I mentioned really require somebody to have some training doing it to be good at it, right? I'm not saying you can't figure it out as you go. Lots of people do. Yana did. Nikki, you probably did. You figured it out as you went, right? But the thing is that that's stressful. It takes time to learn. And if you had had training, it would have gone a lot smoother and you would have been a lot happier for whatever that period of time was while you were getting your feet on the ground, right? So, Yana, maybe you could share, and then I'm going to I'm going to ask Yana and Nikki, because I know Nikki answers the phone at veterans, or used to anyway. I don't know if you still are. So I'm going to pick on them at the beginning, right? And ask like what it was like when you got that job. So Yana, I'll start with you. Like when we begged you to come on, just so I'm going to put this in some perspective. Yana did not want to come to our company. She did not want to work with Larry and I. And we begged and begged and begged. And then over summer break, she said, I will give it a couple weeks. And if I don't like it, you're going to have to hire somebody else. And the reason we did it is because all of a sudden I was having no bids. I was the person who did the most of the estimating. And all of a sudden I'm watching my bid count go down and down and down. So I started listening in to our CSR who had been with us for 6 years. And she was literally telling the people that we're too busy and to call somebody else. And all of a sudden our business is shrinking, right? And we're not alone on this. I've heard this from multiple companies. And what it was her husband was one of my best technicians, and she didn't want him and his friends to be too tired when they got home at night, which doesn't really work for Larry and I. So unfortunately, we had to part ways with her after hearing that. I brought Yana in. I said, the only thing I care about is you get me to the front door. Just get me to the door. I'll sell the rest. And Yana called me the first day at 11 o'clock. Were you crying?
I think
Maybe
I
tearing
was.
up a little.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't do this. I don't want this job. I'm no good at it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, whoa, 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 you've been here 3 hours. Like, how bad can it be? And she's like, I'm no good at it. And I'm like, well, what are you basing that on? How many estimates have you booked? And she was like, I've only booked 11 estimates so far. And I'm like, you're staying. You got yourself a job for life. But Yana,
Yeah.
even though you did do a good job right away, but you were winging it, right? Like you had
Oh,
no idea.
Eric, Eric, it's so true. I mean, Eric and Larry, they dragged me kicking and screaming. It's the last thing I wanted to do. Um, I had no training. I remember sitting down at the computer and Eric just handed me some huge binders with some call scripts in it. And he's like, read through these quickly. And I was just hoping the phone would never ring. And it rang and it rang. And I remember, I so remember that first day. That's years and years ago. But I felt like I had been running a marathon because I was sweating. I was sort of even hyperventilating because I didn't have training. I had no idea. I didn't know what I was doing. So I had to sort of, I mean, since then I had training. I realized, what I needed to do, and that really helps. But I had to ask myself that first day, what is it that would make me book a job with a particular company? What am I looking for when I call a company? And that's what I ended up doing. I just was personable. I was nice. I tried to get information, and hey, it worked. So, um, and Eric mentioned that after we sold the business, I coached. And I think one of the most important things, Eric, that you said at the very beginning of this is that we did not know, we do not realize the importance of the CSR or the receptionists. And I since then coached so many CSRs, and I keep on telling them, they're always like, oh, I just answer the telephones, or I just, I'm just at the front desk answering the phones. There's nothing just about it. I'm like, you are the face, that first impression, that first 30 to 60 seconds of a call is the most important part of the call, because that's when that first impression happens. And we need to make a great first impression. If we want to book these calls, and if we want to make great customer service experience and stand heads and shoulders above the competition, it's that person on the telephone. It's vital that we get that right. So anyway, that's my thought about it. I wish I'd had a bit of training though before I started. It'd have made it easier.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, if we could have done it over, we would have gotten you some training, but we
Yeah.
just didn't have time for that at the
Yeah.
moment. So, Nikki, what about you? When you first picked up the phone on that first phone call, I mean, were you like Yana and just got thrown in?
Oh, I got thrown in because the only office person we had went on vacation. Um, I had worked for veterans for about a week and a half, and I was hired. Yeah, and I was hired as a marketing assistant. And Jim and John went to South Palooza, so I was literally the only one there. And they came back and looked at me, and I said, "No, this is all happening. I can't." And they were like, "Oh, but you do it so well." I'm like, "I don't know what I'm doing." So
Yeah.
yeah, it's all about, but I mean, and it's funny now because I look at it and, I've trained, you know, three CSRs, one dispatch, and um, I can train them all day long, but even, and Jim looked at me the other day and he said, "You're not going to be on phones." I'm like, "Why not?" And he goes, "I don't know what happened, but somewhere along the way, you lost your phone voice." And I'm like, thanks.
Nice.
He goes,
Nice.
you train them very well. And I do. I have a SOP for both that I train too now. And they know
Yeah.
exactly how to do inside sales along with everything. I mean, answer any questions. And I want to say they know as much as my territory managers do.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. You need to know that.
So,
Okay. Thanks, Nikki. Appreciate
mhm.
that. So let's get into it then. What's the real goal of a CSR? Real goal is to create revenue, right? That's the goal. Like we can say that it's to be a friendly voice. We can say that it's to be the face or the voice of the company, and those things are true. But the goal is to turn that phone call in. Ideally, that phone call gets turned into a bid. That bid turns into revenue, and we go do it, right? Or it might be an existing customer, and it's getting that person to book a job right then and there, right? So, really, at least in my estimation, the CSR role is also a sales role, right? It's a different kind of sale, but it's still a sale. And, you know, so much of a company's revenue is either won or lost on that initial phone call. And I don't think many home service companies really take the time enough to think about that, you know. Um, you know, Tommy Mello talks about it all the time. Last time I saw Tommy talking, he was like, the four metrics are, how do I get the phone to ring? How does that phone turn into a face to face? How many do I sell? And what's the average ticket? He's like, you could basically take that 4 or 5 metrics and run any business in the world for the most part, right? I mean, home service business. So we have to make sure that the person answering the phone understands that what their job is, right? Yana, if I did one thing right, I did give you a directive. Just get me to the door on as
You
many phone
did.
calls as
You
possible.
did. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll take it from there. Larry will take it from there. If Larry and I go to the house, we're going to sell it. We just got to get to the house.
Yeah.
Right. So don't be wishy-washy with your team about what their role is when you answer the phone. Right. They have to also understand that the idea is to create work. So Yana recently wrote a ebook, which we'd like to give away. 10 strategies to book the call. So it's just some, well, Yana, what is the book?
Well,
I
you know,
read
I've
it,
had,
but you explain it better than I do.
yeah, well, I have had so many people ask me, if we could just put into practice just a few things, what should we do? I've had this asked so many times. So I thought I'd just put, what are 10 things that can be done to help you? I mean, yes, you want to book the call, you want to provide great customer service. So what can you do? So I just went over 10 things like, being positive, making sure you're confident. What does that mean? It means being prepared, knowing what the services are offered. Um, being personable, listening to the client, asking questions, all these principles that we talk about when we train and coach the CSRs, building value, um, being being grateful, and then also at the end of a couple of the last points I talk about is offer incentives, because promotions or free consultations for us at Shamrock, that was really a big deal. We would offer a free estimate, but people they want to commit to something when there's something in it for them. So we want to make sure that there's some incentives you can offer, so you don't want to lose that call. So we talk about that in the book, and then I also talk about multiple options. Are there different types of pricing packages that you can offer a client, or maybe there's a range of appointment times. So we talk about multiple options, and then again that the gratitude, being thankful. So there's just those 10 strategies that'll help sort of up the game a little bit with the person who answers the telephone for you.
All right. Connor, you here?
Yes, I am.
So how does everybody get the ebook if they want it?
Yeah, so the best way to get the ebook is just put your cell phone number into the chat, and then I will text you out a link to the ebook. It's going to be from a 431 number. Yeah, I'm Canadian, sorry about that, but it will come through and I'll
You
text
never
it to
have to
you.
apologize about being Canadian, buddy.
Canadians apologize about everything. They're so nice.
That is true. You are correct.
All right. So yeah, if you guys could all just throw your cell phone numbers in there, Connor will make sure that you get it if that's what you want. Larry, is everybody getting the numbers?
Yeah, we got it. We're all taking care of it. Don't you worry. Just keep on talking.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Sorry, I'm all messed up here. So yeah, so everybody can get that, and hopefully it's a resource for your person on the phone or your people on the phone, right? So we were talking earlier about managing first impressions, and like I think we all feel this, like every one of us here calls places to get service, whether we're calling a hotel or a rental car place or to get our carpets cleaned or a restaurant or whatever. And a lot of how we feel about that company and whether we want to give them our money or do business with them or whatever, so much of that is all about the first impression on the phone. Like if we make that phone call. And I also think it's a little bit of a dying art because so many things can be done through texting or online or through a chat, or whatever, that giving really good phone service is all that more important, especially to, I think, higher end clients, right? So, we want to talk about what makes for a good call, what makes you happy on the other end of the phone call. So, Michelle, I'm going to pick on you, right? You just got to unmute.
Okay.
So if you call a business because you're thinking that you might want to do business with them, what are you expecting on the other end of the line when you call? Like what would make you feel good about that interaction?
A person that sounds happy that I called.
Okay.
First. A descriptive response, like on ours, we say, "It's a great day. It's your favorite CPA. How may we help you today?" So
Right.
they're kind of give it a little something, and then happy, upbeat, and willing to help and willing to listen.
Yeah.
For starters.
Okay. Perfect. Thank
Yeah.
you. All right. I'm going to post this to anybody. So how do you feel when a place doesn't answer the phone live?
No, I can't stand it. If I have to press one for English or if I've got to go through some automated service to find somebody, as soon as I hear it open up, I'm immediately pressing 0 to talk to somebody human. I hate talking to a computer.
Okay. But then,
I hear you. I agree.
okay. Well, then how do you guys feel? Like, would you leave the call and just call another company?
If there's an option, I would.
Yeah, if I've got the availability to call somebody else, I
Okay.
will.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. All right. You don't have to answer anybody that's here. I know there's some cleaners in here that are owner operators. How many people? It's all good, right? There's no judgment. And Larry and I have done it too. How many of us let the call go to a voicemail and we call them back in between jobs or whatever? Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay. So how many clients do you think you potentially are losing by doing that? You know, look, you'd lose me.
So
I don't get anybody. I'm just on to the next one. Just
so
going.
AC actually did this morning on Tribe Time. He said eight and a
Okay.
half jobs you're losing by that. On
Eight
average
and a
a
half
day
jobs
per day
a day
that you're not
per
answering
day.
your phone. Yep.
What would the call volume be, Scott, for that? What did he say?
That he didn't. He didn't give the total amount of phone calls.
Yeah.
It's going to depend on your average of
Yeah.
what your phones typically ring through the season. But
Yeah.
he says, I mean, just by not answering the phones, you don't lose out on about 8.5 jobs.
Yeah. And look, for all of us in the restoration world, I know Kent and Chuck and Phil, look, we don't answer a phone call. We could lose a referral source that we've spent 2 years trying to get that could be worth $500,000 a year. It could be a plumbing company, and we don't pick up the phone one time. We're out. They're on to the next, right? I mean, Larry was a stickler about us answering the phone. And I mean that in a good sense, right? Larry's thing was like, we can't miss any phone calls ever. I mean, Larry, you want to elaborate on that? Because you were like the patrolman at our company for that.
Yeah, I got a little aggro sometimes because I'd be working to create these referral sources. And if we didn't take care of them or we weren't in a timely fashion, they would have it out with me. They'd be like, I'd love to use you, but if you don't answer your phone, you're out. Or if your people aren't doing the right thing they're supposed to be doing, they would tell me directly, and I'd be like, oh, because I'm going in there telling them we're good on the phones. We're going to answer your phone. We're doing a great job. And then if we drop the ball, it's like egg on my face.
Yeah.
So I got a little aggro. So it was a big deal.
It is a big deal though, right? So, Yana, I'm going to lean on you a little bit. So can you walk everybody through kind of, like whether it's through just Shamrock or Power Selling Pros, like what's the protocol to make a great first impression? What should everybody be doing to make sure that when that phone's getting picked up, it's a good experience?
Sure. Yeah. Well, actually, you've got it here on your slide, which is right on point to what I would coach when I would be coaching CSRs. The first 30 to 60 seconds are the most important time. I mean, I'm sure this happened to every single one of you guys. You've called a place and all you get is hello on the other line. And you have no idea. I'm like, did I call the right place? Did I misdial? What's going on? So the first thing we have to do is make sure that we have, and Michelle, you said it, a happy, enthusiastic, good energy, positive voice on the phone that is willing to help somebody and smile. That's one of the big things. Smiling, it carries across. So we'd always teach our CSRs, make sure you're smiling, you're positive, and then we need to get a really good greeting. And yes, it can be something fun, like how can I make your day sunshiny or whatever it may be. But We want to introduce the company. We want to introduce ourselves. We want to ask that client or that potential client, what can we do to help them? We ask those things, and then we do, you know, that Dale Carnegie said it about, you know, remember that a person's name is to that person what the sweetest sound, something like that. I'm paraphrasing it, but, you know, get that client's name, because we need to use it. We need to build a relationship with these potential clients. It's tough out there to get the phone to ring, and it's tough out there to have a great customer service experience. It's a hard thing, and we want to be able to stand heads and shoulders above the competition. We want to build those relationships with those clients and potential clients, and we do it by building relationships. And one of the easiest things you can do is by getting that client's name right at the beginning of the call. Ask them for their name and then use it. Those are those really important first minute of the call. Do those things, and you're building a good relationship. You're starting anyway.
Okay. Of the people here, is anybody answering the phone consistently other than Nikki and Yana?
I'd like to make a comment on that. What Yana said, the smile. People know if you're smiling on the phone or not. They know if you're not giving them your 100% attention to that phone call. It was in 2000. I'd taken a class for Glass Doctor when I worked there, and that's the one thing that I remember head over everything is that you have to smile when you answer the phone.
Yep.
And it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Yep, you're right, Kent. Sheila, you're answering the phone pretty consistently for some of the time. Oh, you're muted. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I was muted. Yes, I am helping. We're just a little shorthanded, so I am backed up on the phones consistently.
Okay. So what's your way of doing it? I would like to hear from other people too. So like what's your kind of protocol? Like what are you trying to accomplish? How are you going about it? Is it any different than what we're talking about? Or do you have any tips and tricks that we could all learn from? Because that's the power of the group, is that we all share and help each other, right?
Right. Well, we're in Florida and we own a inspection company. So we primarily are dealing with a lot of real estate related folks. It can be realtors, brokers, attorneys, etc. But my first thought is always answer on the first ring if at all possible. Again, have that smile in your voice. We have had mirrors on our desks at times, because what you reflect when you're on that, sometimes you need a refresher.
Yeah.
But I am very passionate. I don't use call centers. I need to have a live backup. We just reduced our nighttime for a little while. But I'm a big proponent of having somebody represent your company for whatever time period you're answering that phone. You let it go to a service more times than not, in my experience, has been they do not represent like we would represent our company.
Yep. Yeah. I think most people would say that, probably, I think that's what.
Mhm.
Right. Does anybody else have anything that they're doing differently than what we're talking about, or something that you'd like to bring up in your company that might be unique? Because I always like to get lots of perspectives of how everybody's doing it. Anybody have anything else?
Yeah, we listen back to recordings.
Oh, yep. Linda, was that you that said that?
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry. Yes, we actually record all our calls, and weekly we randomly pick some and listen to them.
Yep.
and critique.
Yep, that's perfect. You're reading the slide that I haven't shown yet. So, no, it's perfect though. That's what you need to do, right? So, okay. Anybody else before I move on? Okay, I'll move on.
No, I had worked for a moving company, and they always picked up on the first ring. Like that was, the staff, that was the one thing they had to do.
Yeah.
all the time. And I used it when I was doing an estimate. I said, look, they'll pick up on the first ring and say, call the office for availability. And, they did.
Yeah.
So that was a good way to kind of show that you are diligent. And
Yeah. I agree, Tom. I think that's a great point because there's nothing worse when you call a place and then like you're like 5 or 6 rings in and you're like, is this place in business anymore? Like, is anybody even here? And all of a sudden, it's what Yana said. Then after 6 rings, you get somebody to go, hello? I'm out. There's got to be somebody that could do this better than this. So, okay. Yeah, then we'll move on to, really asking questions and serving, right? That's what we do. If it's a sales position, which I believe it is, at least on some level, we're going to be asking questions because to get the information that we need from them so that we can serve them better, we have to be good at asking lots of questions sometimes or answering lots of questions sometimes, right? And that's service, right? So I used to hear Yana doing this all the time. One of Yana's first lines is, how can I help you? What can I do for you? Right? Like, we got to find out what they want. And sometimes you got to dig a little bit because not everybody's completely upfront and straightforward with what they want, or maybe they don't even know quite what they want, right? They call somebody to get the carpet clean, but they've never had their carpet clean. So they don't know what to ask. So they feel uncomfortable. Or somebody's in restoration and they just had a loss and they're freaking out and they call your restoration company and they don't even know what to say. They're kind of freezing up. I mean, Yana, how many times did people call and they were just like almost frozen on the phone because their house is underwater?
Yeah, I know. Oh, those were just those awful calls when they'd call and they'd be like, we had no ceiling. The ceilings had collapsed or whatever. And they just don't, they're so scared and frightened and just don't even know what to say. They need help. They need help and they're reaching out to us and they don't even know what to do or where to begin. And that's what we do. And I always, ask those questions because we want to understand what the customer needs. And it also shows that you're interested in them. So I'm always saying the W questions, the where's, the what's, the when's, the why's. It gets you the information. Hey, you pass that information on to the technicians as well. So they are fully armed with, they know what's going on in the house because you've asked those questions. It allows you to build that rapport to get that relationship going. And it shows you could show care when you've asked the questions and they're answering the questions. Now you show care. And what have you done? All of a sudden you've elevated your customer service experience because you've built a relationship with them, that you're helping them. You're showing care. You're asking them the questions. They're answering.
Well, and I can remember because, we have a lot of restorers on this call. And, when people call in, they're in their worst spot. Like maybe there was a fire, maybe there's water flowing in the house freely right now, and they're freaking out. I would hear Yana saying to the other office team all the time, like when this is happening, we have to be empathetic. We have to tell them that we're so sorry and that we care and that we're going to send somebody to fix it right away. And right, that's going to make them feel better. It's serving, right? It's what it is. And you have to obviously get the information and do all that, but you also need to show care to people. Like, look, if Michelle's a CPA, lots of people are nervous about their money. That like going to a CPA freaks them out, right? So the person on the phone needs to be a little empathetic if they're like, oh, I got to call a CPA. That makes me nervous. Am I wrong?
Right. And we have people that will call and they'll just jump right to how much does it cost? And we have to calm them down because we can't just quote a number. We have to know about your situation. We have to know, are we talking about self-employed? Are we talking about K1s? Do you have 20 pages of Edward Jones transactions? I mean, we have to collect some data, and we had one of those today, and he was just so irate and panicked and first time owning a business and now freaking out about the taxes. And, like he must have just thought about it. And so we have to come up with a way to get back with him. So we calm him down and let him, we'll send him a list of things that he would need to collect for us to even give him an estimate.
Right.
So yeah, it can be
Yeah.
hard.
And I think that happens all the time in every industry, right? People are nervous sometimes to call. I remember when Yana and I were newlyweds, she spilled a gallon of paint on our brand new carpet and freaked out and called me at work and was like, I just spilled a gallon of paint on our carpet. Our house is ruined. And she was panicking. And I was like, call a carpet cleaner. You know, and then 2 hours later, I get the phone call. Yeah, it's all gone. It's all good again. But I mean, Yana, you were frozen.
I was, yeah.
You didn't know what to do. So I'm sure when you called, you probably exhibited a lot of fear.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right. Well, let's get into getting the client to act, right? Because that's really where the rubber meets the road. We want to get our CSRs to get us to the door. That is the crucial element here, right? So we have to create a call to action, right? And usually that comes in the form of a script. Nikki talked about scripts earlier, right? We don't want to be winging every call, and we don't want every call to be different than the call before. We want to create a scripting system, whether it's an intake for a new loss in a restoration company or your plumbing, HVAC, window washing. We want to have something to say to reach an end result, right? So we need to get to the point where there's a call to action. Like for us, the call to action was, would you like to have somebody come over and inspect the house and suck up and do emergency services? Yes, I would. Okay, great. And we had a whole script for that. And then on the other side, it was, would you like somebody to come out and give you an estimate for carpet or tile cleaning, right? So you got to have a script, but then you also have a call to action. Like Michelle's saying, the guy calls and he's like, just give me a price. But he doesn't know, they don't know what they don't know. Right. So we have to, Yana will chime in here. We got to get them to slow their roll and work backwards and start selling some value and getting them to understand and then book the call. Right. So Yana, what do you do when somebody calls in and it's just like, just give me a price on the phone, or they're trying, they don't know what to ask, so they just kind of ask ridiculous stuff. Like, how do you corral that person to get them to take the action that you want them to take?
Well, that is probably the most common those are the most common calls when you had someone like that would be, yeah, how much is it? Or how quickly can you come out? Those are the two most common ones when they just fire that out. And so we would always try to take it back a step and go back through the asking of the question. So let's go back and ask. Tell me what's going on. Ask those W questions again. When did you notice this happening? Where is it going on? How long has it been happening for? Those questions again to start to build that rapport again. And then you must always remember, and we would always write personalized value statements, because it's not only about price. Maybe they're asking about price because that's all they can think about. And that's all they know to ask. But it's so much more. I mean, we're talking about the value of your company. What makes you stand out? So you need to have a value statement. You need to build value on 3 things. You have to have value on your business. How long have you been in business? Are you family-owned business? What are some things that make you stand out as a business? And then you need to build value on the service offered. So is it guaranteed? What makes that service that you're offering stand out? And then build value on the technicians. So you've got these 3 things that you're building value on, and you want to tell the customer about that before you start telling them anything about price. You're taking it a step back. So that's what we would always do, and we would build personalized value statements for the CSRs. We had it for us, and for us at Shamrock, we wanted to get you or Larry or whomever it was later on when we were bigger and we had other people doing it. So we wanted to get them in the door of the house. So we wanted to, first of all, let them know what are they getting when they book a job either a cleaning job, or if they had us do emergency services, what are they getting when they hire Shamrock? So we would build the value, and we wanted to get you guys in the door. So then we would let them know, oh, by the way, it didn't cost anything to have you come, but we wanted to let them know what came with what was the package deal with Shamrock.
Yeah. Well, and one of my big things was, look, everybody needs to do it the way that works for your company, but we never gave a price on the phone, no matter what, because we didn't want to be a commodity. Now we're like a drive to the bottom. They're going to call 5 companies, and whoever gives me the lowest price, they're going to go. But that's not an apple and an apple. That could be an apple and an orange, right? So my whole thing was like, Yana and the other girls, don't give a price. Just keep going back to let somebody come to the house. There's no obligation. It's going to be no pressure. There's not going to be any hard sales, but we have to see it. Because if I can get in the door, or Larry can get in the door, or one of our other estimators can get in the door, now they can start building value because we've got our nice uniforms on. We've got the nice van. We put the shoe covers on. We're now putting on a show. So it's not about price anymore for them. Now it's about value, right? Like, wow, look at this company. They're amazing. Like I would never have known that they did all these things with the shoe covers and the runners and all the stuff, right? So, I'm not saying don't give a price over the phone. Like, you have to do whatever works for your business. But for us, we didn't want to be a commodity. We wanted to be, we were not the cheapest. So if we started giving price, we were not going to get the jobs. People are just going to hear the price. But if they could have somebody come over, like if Phil went over to their house and started doing the whole spiel and giving them the value, and they like Phil and they feel good about the company, and we're showing all the 5-star reviews and all the awards we've won, it's not about price anymore. It's going to be about price until you make it not about price. So for us, we wanted to get the people on the phone to try to begin making it not about price, and then getting somebody to the door so we could even more so make it not about price and get the price that we felt we needed and deserved. So, is anybody else doing something? Does anybody give a price on the phone?
No.
Denver, you give a price on the phone?
We do sometimes, about 50%.
Okay.
And we don't get a lot of them.
Okay. Scott?
So only prior clients. So we can look back to see what they've done because they're repeat customers. And usually it's just the change of their reward. So they may actually be saving more if they're a repeat.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah. Repeat clients different. I'm talking new clients. So repeat, yeah, Yana would give a price on the phone, because a lot of times they just go, what did we do last time and how much was it? And, our prices didn't change that drastically from year to year. Clyde, do you have your hand up?
I like to make it a bit of a fun game when they ask for a price on the phone.
Okay.
I say, well, I really do need to know what your situation is. We just need to ask a few questions. Is that all right? And if they still refuse, I give them the absolute maximum price that it could be. And then I said, I know it's too much, but you haven't told me any more details. I need more information.
That's awesome. I have a question, Clyde. So when you do that, do they have a chuckle and then tell you to come over?
Oh, it breaks the ice and it makes it more human, and they start responding a little bit more intelligently.
Okay, perfect. Linda, you have your hand up?
Yeah, we actually do give a price because we do charge to go out. It's a diagnostic and assessment fee because we have to diagnose the whole door system in order to know what really needs to be done, because the symptoms don't always tell you enough.
Yeah.
And then our technician, and we include in that, we completely lubricate and service the whole door system. While we're looking at everything, we gather all the data, so we have, if we ever have to get called back again. And then we have our technicians actually quote the prices while they're there and after they know what they need.
Okay. So do you guys get pushback on the diagnostic fee? And if so, which I'm assuming you must, right? And then how do your CSRs overcome that to get them to still go out?
Well, we actually try to give give it the value before anyone even goes out. That if we just said, oh, it's $119, yeah, we'd probably get quite a bit of pushback. But that's part of the reason we actually tell them up front that, you know, for us to come visit is this, you know, it's $119. And but what you get with all that automatically is that we're going to service your whole door. We're going to make assessments. We try to sell it the 119, that as opposed to them thinking that it's, you know, oh, 119 just to show up. They're thinking, wow, I get all that for 119. That's good.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. And I'm assuming the CSRs are just constantly selling the value of the $119 service
Yes.
call. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a script and also a form, you know, that they have to fill out the form. They have to ask every question on the form, and they have to also, I keep telling them, act as if it's your neighbor that, you know, that you are going to run into at Safeway. And so you need to talk to them as if they're your best friend.
Yeah. Okay. Love it. Nope. That's awesome. Okay. So we've already been kind of talking about, you know, when people say, what does it cost? Or, you know, even if it's this is too expensive, it's going back and building the value and all those good things. Right. But in the interest of time, I'd like to move on to, this is a question, especially in busy season, that we get, and we're always worried that we're going to lose people, right? I need somebody today, and we don't have anybody today, right? We're booked or we're slammed or whatever, right? So Yana, I'm going to lean on you for this. What do you guys say when we're like just slammed to the gills?
Well, we've often said, you know, if we're busy, it tends to be that other companies are busy as well. So I've always offered an urgency list or a priority list where we said, look, we often have a technician who gets done earlier, or we have clients that reschedule. We'll be happy to put you on our priority list or our urgency list, and we can call you if that happens and schedule that, call you 30 minutes before arrival time or something like that. So that has worked for us.
We lost your sound.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me again?
We can.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's worked for us, having an urgency list or priority list.
Yeah.
That has really been helpful on our end.
What are other people doing with when you're slammed and you don't want to necessarily lose that potential client? How are you dealing with trying to get still somebody to the door? Ken?
We do a little something over here that's different than most people. We charge an actual assessment fee on all jobs except for our commercial clients.
Okay.
That fee is actually $580. And the reason we put that on it, because one, if they are interested, we also mention that it gets credited to the estimate or invoice price.
Right.
But we also eliminate tire kickers.
Yeah.
Quick.
Qualifying them with that.
Yes, sir.
Yep. I love that. That's great. Anybody else? Bill, it sounded like you know, what do you do? Because I'm assuming that I know Bill runs a great carpet cleaning business, and you must get overbooked all the time.
Correct. Yeah.
So how do you deal with it so that you don't have them calling somebody else?
I mean, I likely, lose quite a bit of jobs, but honestly, Eric, the ones that, the customers that come with through a referral, I find that they'll wait. Now, are 100% going to wait? No. But they'll, if I tell them I'm booked out 3 to 4 weeks, or sometimes it's even more, then that tells them I'm good, right? And that tells them I've been doing this a long time and I'm in demand. But many times they'll wait. If it comes from a really excellent referral, they're going to wait. But like there are times somebody needs it right away, and I'll refer them to someone else or put them on a waiting list. And somebody cancels, I'll go ahead and get out there. So
okay, perfect. All right, let's move on. We got 5 minutes left. I want to make sure we get this last slide done. So the old saying, don't expect what you inspect, right? This goes to what Linda was saying earlier about listening to calls, right? We need to be listening to calls so that we make sure that the people are actually doing what we've trained them to do, right? It's one thing to train somebody, but then it doesn't mean that they won't go off and kind of make their own system as they go, as they go, right? So we got to make sure we're spot checking and sticking to the script and having the smiling voice and all the things that we need, right? People need feedback. I mean, we'll be talking about this pretty consistently through the next 10 weeks after tonight. You will hear me say over and over and over that I'm a big believer in 30-day reviews. Every 30 days, you're getting some sort of quick review because people do better when they're getting feedback consistently, right? And when you give feedback that consistently, they can't get way off track. You're only getting a little off track and you're bumping them back to where you need. Well, if you're not listening to calls and then having teaching moments by having frequent reviews, it's going to be much harder to get that person back to where you really want them because they're going to develop a lot of bad habits, right? So I would say listen to calls, frequent reviews, and then training, right? You need to be training. Yana, when you were at Power Selling Pros, like how much training are they doing and what are they doing so that everybody can have an idea of what people
Yes.
are doing?
Yes. So a traditional trading would be a CSR is coached for 30 minutes twice a week. Every single call that they receive is recorded. Their calls are randomly listened to see if they're putting into practice what they've learned. They usually do get some sort of homework, whether it is if we're learning a particular principle or something to ask, they have to maybe do some back reading or there's some sort of materials they could read up on. So there's consistent training. And then when we would coach, we would listen to their calls together. So we would review it together because, hey, how many people like to feel that they're being listened to? Not really a lot. They feel that they're being critiqued all the time. But the more we did it, the more comfortable they became with it. And then they looked forward to it because they really wanted to learn. Mostly, I should say, not maybe every single one of them, but mostly they like to see that they're progressing and that they're putting into practice what they've been learning. So I mean, it was every 2 weeks and in between that time as well, on their own part, they had to do their homework.
Yeah, no, perfect. And then lastly, we'll end with this. You got to track your metrics for that person, right? Number one, Number one, you need to know whether they're going to be good or they're good on the phone and they're doing their job, right? So we want to track the percentage of calls converted. For most companies, it's what's the conversion rate? How many calls came in? How many did you book for either a job or a bid, right? But it goes two ways. I mean, we need that to be able to manage the person, but the person needs that to know that they're winning at work. Nobody wants to come to work every day and go, am I doing a good job? Nobody's telling me I'm doing a good job. Like, I don't know what doing a good job looks like here. Like, nobody's fired me yet. So I guess I'm doing okay. Right. That's a huge different thing than like, hey, Nikki, your goal is to have an 80% conversion rate. Right. So all of a sudden, Nikki's got something to shoot for. And Nikki's at 84%. And she's going like this every day that she comes to work because she knows she's killing it. And if she's at 76%, she's like, ooh, I got something to work on, right? Like all of us like feedback. Like it's not always the most comfortable thing, but we tend to do better when we have a goal to shoot for. And, we got to have a target. All of us, no matter what our job is, we all need to have something that we're aiming at, or we lose focus, or we drift off and start doing our own thing, right? When you drift off, all of a sudden your conversion rate's going to go to crap because you're not doing the things that keep a conversion rate high. So whatever the metrics are that you want to track with your CSRs, just make sure that you're tracking, that it's consistent, and that you are talking about it with them, right? They don't hide the feedback from them. Use it as a teaching tool. right? Don't weaponize it. Don't take those numbers and weaponize them against that person. That's not going to make them better. That's going to make them worse on the phone because they're going to be stressed. But it can be a teaching tool, right? So we definitely want to make sure that we're tracking data as well. And then we will end at 1 minute. Oh, so for anybody interested in, you could throw your, I guess, cell phone number or whatever in the chat. If anybody's interested in the CSR video training that Yana does, just reach out in the chat and Connor can send you some free lessons or something like that. I'm not gonna go into.
Also, I'm going to be sending out a recording. If anybody isn't on my list, please put your email there and I'll send you a recording of this as well.
Okay.
And I've got one note too. Clyde, your cell phone number has one too many digits. Is that a mistake that
He's
I'm
in
making?
Australia.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Just get Clyde's
he's an
email
Aussie.
address.
Yeah,
Maybe.
can we do
Yeah,
the
we
email
got
for
that.
that one?
Yeah.
Clyde, you're an
Yeah.
outlier.
Yeah, it's Friday morning over here.
I'm sorry, Connor. It's in the spreadsheet I sent you.
Okay, perfect.
All right, and we'll finish off with a quote from Frank Sonnenberg. Answer the phone with a smile. The caller will hear it.
Yeah.
Just like Kent said. So, all right. Anybody have any questions before we call it a day? My voice is giving out. Sorry. All right. We'll see you guys back here next week, and we'll talk about managing your sales force, your estimators. All right. See you then.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a great week.